Incredible Billionaire exposes the heartwarming truth behind three triplet kids' shocking eviction. Michael Hawkins drove slowly down the cracked streets of Maplewood, his heart pounding against his ribs. This was his old neighborhood, a place that once thrived with laughter and love. Now, it felt like an echo of those memories, stripped of color and vibrancy. He had left the small town long ago, becoming a billionaire in the big city, but returning home stirred something deep within him, a mix of nostalgia and urgency. It was during this drive that he first heard of Emma, Ethan, and Ella, the triplet siblings evicted from their home after the tragic loss of their mother. The news struck him hard. Just pictures in his mind, the kids went from cheerful faces, running through backyards, to mere shadows of what they used to be. Neighbors gathered, their eyes glistening with empathy, united in their grief for the children abandoned in their time of need. A lump formed in his throat as he recalled his own mother working tirelessly as a waitress to provide for him. Compassion and community were values she had carved into his heart, ones he thought had faded with his wealth. As he parked his fancy car around the corner, he could hear the voices rising in anger at the town hall meeting. The room was packed, filled with the spirited residents of Maplewood, echoing frustrations and hopes. He slipped in, unnoticed at first, an observer in a familiar space he once called home. The faces spoke volumes, their love for each other and their longing for a community that thrived echoed through the heavy air. One woman, her voice cracking, shared how the triplets were practically her own grandchildren. It reflected a bond that spanned generations, built on shared struggles and hopes. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just then, a gut-wrenching realization struck him. He remembered the waitress who worked beside his mother, a woman with a kind smile and laughter that filled their long, hard shifts. It was the triplets' mother. A wave of warmth and sorrow surged through him. He wasn't just championing for three kids, he was confronting the very narrative of his own life. The same struggles faced by so many families, losing their homes, their dreams shattered. As hope flickered in the room, pushing back against despair, Michael fought back his tears. He felt compelled to act. Should he step in as the billionaire savior, or empower the community to rise up together? The fight for Emma, Ethan, and Ella was about more than just charity. It was about dignity, justice, and reclaiming a lost sense of home. The crowd stirred, and voices grew louder. They were ready to stand, and so was he. But as he prepared to rise and advocate for their future, a question weighed heavily on his mind: could his influence create real change, or would it render him just another wealthy outsider? The air crackled with tension, and every heart in the room waited, hoping for a spark that would ignite the fight for the triplets' lives. Michael took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pulling him back into his memories. The faces around him were familiar yet changed, people who had once been a part of his every day. The undertones of desperation mixed with determination filled the room, and he felt the pull of their collective pain, their hopes intertwining like the roots of the very old trees lining the streets of Maplewood. He stood up, his knees slightly shaking. The room fell silent as countless eyes turned toward him. His voice faltered for a second, but the seriousness of the situation pushed him forward. I know these children, or at least, I knew their mother. He took another breath, driving away the lump forming in his throat. She was a remarkable woman, a part of this community. And Emma, Ethan, Ella, they deserve our love and support now more than ever. A murmur of recognition spread through the crowd. For many, the name brought back flashes of memories, a smile here, a wave there. It was like turning pages of an album long tucked away but cherished. As tense as the moment was, it sparked a taste of unity. I may not have raised these kids, but I understand loss. I understand the fight for a life, a home. When he looked at them, he didn't see just faces, he saw possibilities. The children could thrive if they had a chance, and that chance was now. We can't let their mother's absence be the end of their story. We have to work together. Voices erupted again, this time with an enthusiasm that pushed against the despair that once cloaked the room. Michael felt encouraged. It wasn't just a plea, it was a call to arms, each whispered hope igniting a flicker of possibility among them, but the reality loomed large. Beneath the budding camaraderie, barriers existed that would not be easily dismantled. Bias, wealth disparities, and long-held grudges could undermine the community's efforts. Whatever they would achieve, it had to be built on trust and understanding, not just his influence or wealth. An older gentleman standing in the back raised his hand. The room quieted down again. It's a noble idea, but how do we know your heart is in this? You're a billionaire now, living in a world far from ours. There was skepticism in his voice, a wolf not easily charmed by sheep's clothing. Michael nodded, understanding the question, not just the words, but the hurt behind them. You're right. I haven't lived it like you have. But I'm here now. I want to help, not as a savior but as a partner. I want to listen to what you need. We can come together to find a solution. Emma's small voice suddenly cut through the heaviness. Are we going to be okay? Everyone turned to the trio of siblings. The innocence in her question hit hard, silencing everything around them. Michael stepped closer, kneeling down to her level. We will do everything we can, Emma. I promise. In that moment, it became clear that he wasn't just directing the conversation, he was weaving himself into their lives, their struggles, their hopes. The group began to speak to one another, murmurs growing into a steady rhythm, plans coming to life, rooted in a shared mission. He felt the connection growing among them, and he believed in it. Maybe, just maybe, they could forge a path together, but as the meeting progressed, another thought invaded Michael's mind like dark clouds rolling in. What sacrifices would he have to make to gain their trust? Could he truly commit to this mission without losing himself in the process? The clock on the wall ticked louder, blending with the mounting interest, as he stared at the passionate faces before him. The uncertainty gripped him, leaving a palpable tension in the air. He was about to find out just how deep this journey would take him. Would he commit fully to this shadow of a past that had now become a beacon of hope, or would he retreat back to the life he'd created, far away from Maplewood? The answers loomed just ahead, and the path unfolded in ways he had yet to imagine. The room buzzed with a quiet anticipation, each heartbeat echoing the unspoken fears and hopes shared among the townsfolk. Michael scanned their resolute faces, trying to grasp the enormity of what he was stepping into. Could he become the spark they needed? Or would he remain an outsider with lofty ideas that would wither under scrutiny? He straightened up, overcoming the weight of doubt settling on his shoulders. Let's start talking about what we can do. What are the immediate needs for Emma, Ethan, and Ella? Voices began to bubble up again, one after another. A woman mentioned food, another spoke of clothing, and an elderly man passionately recounted the importance of stability and education for the children. Each concern felt heavy with significance, and Michael opened his notebook, jotting down each point. Suddenly, Emma's soft voice broke through the crowd again. Will we still have the same home? The question sent a ripple through the room. Eyes darted around, some filling with unshed tears. Michael felt the weight of that innocence, that pure need for safety in a world suddenly upended. Home, he murmured, his mind racing. What was he really offering? A few dollars? A plan? He realized that safety for the triplets began here, amid the people who loved them. It wasn't just about resources, it was about unity. I believe we can secure a place for them that feels like home. A community home. The older man who had challenged him before spoke again. That's easier said than done. Not many want to reach into their wallets for strangers, especially when it's to help kids whose lives are so different from theirs. Then let's change that, Michael replied, his voice resonating with conviction. Let's show people who these kids are. share their stories. Everyone deserves to be seen. A murmur of agreement stirred among the crowd. The idea sparked a fire, igniting discussions about hosting community events, where families could come together, share meals, and even portraits of each child's personality could be on display. Maybe, if given the chance, people would step up to help. Sparks of hope danced like fireflies in the dusky room, as people leaned in, sharing ideas with renewed vigor. Michael smiled as the energy shifted, a community stirring to life. As they gathered around tables, drafting plans, laughter bubbled up, the air thick with a fresh sense of purpose. Michael found himself absorbed in their enthusiasm, unaware of the time slipping away. Yet in the depths of his heart, doubt squirmed, uninvited. Could he truly maintain the momentum once their initial enthusiasm faded? And would he forget, like so many had, once his part was finished? Then came a knock at the door. A young man walked in, looking anxious and suspicious. He scanned the room quickly and locked eyes with Michael. All the chatter gradually died down, replaced by a palpable tension. "Michael," the stranger addressed him, voice low but steady. "There's something you need to know." In an instant, the room fell silent, all eyes shifting to the newcomer. Curiosity mixed with unease made the atmosphere thick. Michael felt his heart racing, a distinct sense of foreboding creeping in. "What is it?" he asked, trying to maintain his composure. "It's about the kids." "It's worse than you thought," the man replied, tension poised for release beneath his calm exterior. Michael's stomach turned. What more could there possibly be? The answers he sought loomed closer, charged with urgency and uncertainty. He could feel a shift coming, one that might alter everything he thought he knew. Michael stepped forward, his pulse quickening. The weight of the man's statement hung in the air like a dark cloud, as if the room itself was holding its breath, waiting for the storm to break. Shadows of doubt crept along the walls, and he didn't know if he wanted the truth or if ignorance would be a better shield. "What do you mean, worse than I thought?" he pressed, forcing his voice to remain steady amid the brewing anxiety. The man took a deep breath, scanning the faces around him as if to gauge their reactions. "I've seen the neighborhood where Emma, Ethan, and Ella used to live. It's not just unstable, it's dangerous. The landlord is trying to push them out for more money, more than they could ever afford." Gasps echoed through the crowd, each one a small crack in the veneer of hope they had just built. Michael's heart sank further, gnawing at the optimism that had begun to flourish. "There's something else," the man continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "There are rumors of a foster home that's looking to take them. They're just 3 kids, but the system, it can be so cold." "No," a woman cried out, her voice breaking. "They can't take them. They've already lost everything." Her emotions traveled like ripples, unsettling the entire room. As one reluctant tear slid down Emma's cheek, Michael felt the urgency sweep over him like a wave. "Listen," he said, raising his hands slightly, trying to bring focus back to the discussion. "We can't let fear take hold. We can do something. We have to act." A steady resolve formed among the group. They began speaking, voices overlapping in passionate pledge after passionate pledge. Some talked about community meetings, others chipped in ideas about fundraising efforts, and a few even started brainstorming how they could directly approach the landlord. But still, Michael felt an ache in his gut. Was it enough? Did they have enough time? Lost in the chatter, he glanced at the stranger, who wore an expression full of conflicted emotions. "What do you want from us?" Michael asked the man, his heart racing with both frustration and raw vulnerability. "We're trying to save these kids. What do you know that we don't?" "They need more than just hope," the man replied softly. "They need advocates. You'll need to fight for them. There are people out there who will try to take advantage of their situation. You have to be ready for that battle." Rumbles of anxiety filled the air again, but as Michael scanned the faces surrounding him, determination shone through. He could see the fire slowly reigniting in their hearts, the will to protect, but he knew they needed a plan, something concrete to hold on to. Then we gather information, every single piece we can find, Michael declared, visualizing the steps ahead with hope. Let us organize ourselves. Bring experts in. We can't just be a group of kind-hearted townsfolk, we have to become a movement. Nods of agreement resonated, voices rose in momentum. The air felt electric with their dedication, vulnerable yet unyielding, but deep inside, Michael still wrestled with uncertainty. Was he cut out for something this big? The thought brushed his mind repeatedly like a stubborn cloud, refusing to dissipate. As thoughts collided in his head, the young man stepped closer, locking eyes with him. Just remember, sometimes the hardest battles are the ones worth fighting the most. And then he turned, a shadow of urgency trailing behind him as he slipped out the door. With that, the room fell into a contemplative silence, one that felt heavy yet charged with potential. Michael felt a spark of clarity within, a glimmer of courage that wrestled against the doubt still coiling around his heart. They all stared at each other, the moment heavy with realization this wasn't just about Emma, Ethan, and Ella anymore. This was about their community, about standing up not just for 3 children but for everyone who needed a voice. As they prepared for action, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that something profound was about to unfold, something that could change not just the kids' lives but theirs, too. Would they be strong enough to fight the looming hardships ahead? Would they discover what was truly at stake as they unfolded the layers of this fight together? Michael stood in the thick silence, the weight of the moment pressing down like a heavy fog. Faces around him were lit with determination, but even the brightest resolve seemed to flicker uncertainly, like candle flames caught in a draft. The air buzzed with a blend of fear and purpose, an odd but compelling mix. "Okay," he said finally, as the tension lingered like a charged storm. "Let us focus on what we can do right now. We can bring together everyone who cares, all the families, everyone from the school. This can't be just about us, we need the whole community behind this." Nods followed, and a few voices chimed in, echoing his ideas. "The kids go to Lincoln Elementary, right?" A middle-aged man shouted, stepping forward. "We can reach out to their teachers, maybe even the principal. Show them we're serious." "Yes." Another woman added, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I talk to the principal often. She's very understanding when it comes to family crises." If we explain everything, energy surged through the room, and it felt like the start of an unstoppable wave. "Let us organize a town meeting tomorrow," Michael urged, his voice rising amid the growing chatter. "We can invite everyone and present what we know about the situation. We should let them know that this isn't just about 3 kids, but the backbone of our community. Everyone deserves a chance." The folks around him were lighting up with ideas now, speaking over each other as they built on what he said. One woman suggested adding a petition to the meeting, while a man proposed handing out flyers to raise awareness. It felt organic, like a coalition being born out of shared despair, but even in the whirlwind of plans and proposals, Michael felt that gnawing doubt creep back in. What if they couldn't generate enough support? What if the landlord was too powerful or worse, uncaring? The thought was like a shadow lurking at the edges of his resolve. Suddenly, Emma's small voice broke through his reverie. "What will happen to us if we can't stop them?" Her wide eyes shimmered with vulnerability, and every adult in the room seemed to hold their breath. Michael took a moment, swallowed hard, and crouched down to her level. "We're going to fight for you, Emma. You won't be alone. No one should face this alone." A few parents shifted uncomfortably, feeling the weight of her question. What if their fight was in vain? What if no matter what they did, the power of bureaucracy crushed their spirit and the kids with it? Michael rose to face the group again, shaking off his own doubts. "We can turn our fear into strength. We can raise our voices together. If we fight for Emma, Ethan, and Ella, we're fighting for all families. We can be their advocates." A cheer erupted, a sound of hope that rose like a phoenix breaking free from near despair. But as he joined in the celebration, he felt something prick at his heart, a realization that this was just the beginning. The deeper they dug into the system, the more obstacles they might uncover, and just as the energy peaked, the door swung open again. The stranger from earlier stepped back inside, though his expression was now one of urgency and concern. "We need to talk about someone who might be able to help," he said, locking eyes with Michael. "But it won't be easy." Michael's heart raced at the implication. Who was this person? What kind of help could they offer? As the room buzzed with excitement and newfound determination, a familiar tension tightened around Michael's chest. Was this the support they so desperately needed, or just another challenge on their path? "Who is it?" Michael asked, his voice cutting through the noise. The stranger hesitated for just a moment before continuing, "You'll want to hear this." In that moment, Michael felt a deep surge of hope, mingled with a single thought: what if this stranger held the key to turning their fight into a victory? The energy in the room shifted instantly. People leaned in closer, anticipation electrifying the air. Michael felt it, too, hope mingled with urgency, as if the stranger's words hung in the balance of their fate. "Who is it?" He pressed again, his emotions bubbling beneath the surface. "Tell us what we need to know." The stranger, a man in a well-worn jacket, took a deep breath. "His name is Bill Castleman. He's a billionaire, and he's got a reputation for stepping in to help communities in distress. But, he's not just a philanthropist. Some see him as troubled, a bit of a recluse. He's lost a lot in his life, and that has shaped who he is." Murmurs swept through the crowd, hope was palpable but edged by skepticism. "Why would he help us?" A voice called out from the back. "What does our little fight mean to someone like him?" "That's the thing," the stranger said, gazing intently at Michael. "He understands loss. If anyone can see the importance of saving those kids, it's him. But he has to be approached carefully. He's been burned by people before, he trusts no one easily." Michael's mind raced. Could they convince someone like Bill Castleman? The thought felt equal parts exhilarating and paralyzing. "How do we get to him?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with a hint of desperation. The stranger stepped closer, lowering his voice. "There's an annual charity event he hosts in town. It's high profile and not something any of us would typically get into, but it's an opportunity. If we can get a few people in there to talk to him, it might be our best chance." "Count me in," a woman declared, raising her hand. "I know a bit about organizing events. We can make an impression." The room erupted in conversation as people bounced ideas off each other, creating a frenzy of enthusiasm. Michael felt a wave lift his spirits. Here they were, a group of small-town residents gathering around a cause far bigger than themselves. Even the shadow of doubt began to flicker, a small flame struggling to stay alive, but something else tugged at him, a question that refused to disappear. What if he turns us away? What if we're wasting our time? Then we move on and reach out to someone else, the stranger said, steel in his voice. But think about what can happen if he listens. He has the connections, the financial power, everything we're lacking. We need to take that chance. With renewed urgency, Michael nodded, rallying the crowd. Their fear transformed into determination. This was their moment to show the world the strength of their unity. They could do this. As plans began to unfold, one question stood out among the group's enthusiasm. What did they really know about Bill Castleman? Was he truly the beacon of hope they needed, or just another door that would slam shut in their faces? Let us dig into him, Michael suggested, casting a glance at the stranger. We need to understand who we're dealing with. Who knows? Maybe he's waiting for a chance to do the right thing. In that moment, Michael felt the heart of their community beating stronger than ever. With hands volunteering for tasks, people made phone calls and pulled out laptops to search for information. But as they plunged deeper into their mission, a gnawing feeling crept back into Michael's mind. What if they uncovered secrets that were better left hidden? The room buzzed with hope, but beneath it simmered uncertainty. The fight for Emma, Ethan, and Ella had just transformed, and with it came new questions. What cost would their search for help extract from them? As the excitement reached a fever pitch, Michael exchanged glances with the stranger. He hoped it was a look of shared determination, but doubt clung to him like a shadow. They were stepping into a new arena, and there was no turning back. "Let us get to work," he said, pumping his fist in the air, but deep down, the voice whispered, was reaching out for help worth the secrets they might unearth along the way? The next morning, a crisp sunlight spilled through the windows, illuminating the kitchen where Michael sat with a steaming cup of coffee. He could feel the weight of the previous day pressing down on him like a heavy blanket. The excitement from the meeting still hung in the air, but it was mixed with a tightening knot of uncertainty in his stomach. The gravity of what they were aiming for felt heavier now that he pulled out his laptop and began to search for anything he could find on Bill Castleman. Articles about his philanthropic work filled the screen, highlighting his donations to education, housing, and medical research. But what did it cost him? He wondered, scrolling through the neatly typed words. Did anyone truly know the man behind the wealth? His phone buzzed, startling him. It was Jess, the woman who had volunteered to help organize the event. Her enthusiasm always had a way of cutting through his doubts. "Hey, Michael. Let us meet up later to brainstorm ideas for how we can attract attention to our cause. I've got some leads on people who could help us get into the charity event," she said with a note of urgency he couldn't ignore. "Sure," he replied, his heart racing with renewed purpose. "Let us do it." Later that afternoon, they gathered at a small cafe, sunlight filtering through the glass, creating a cozy atmosphere despite their looming mission. Jess already had a few names written down on her notepad, her eyes sparkling with determination. "We can leverage social media and reach out to some local influencers. If we can make a splash online, maybe we can catch Castleman's eye." "Sounds like a plan," Michael said, leaning in. They exchanged ideas about hashtags, visual graphics, and how to pull at heartstrings to tell their story. But amidst the chatter, a thought lingered in the back of his mind. What if they stirred up more than they anticipated? The fear of what they might uncover about Bill Castleman filled him with anxiety. What if he harbored ghosts that would make their efforts feel both trivial and invasive? "Hey, are you with me?" Jess asked with a concerned look, snapping him back to reality. "Yeah, sorry," he said, shaking his head to clear the cobwebs. "Just thinking about how hard this could be if things turn south." She placed her hand over his. "Michael, we're not doing this just for ourselves. We're doing it for Emma, Ethan, and Ella. We can't let fear dictate our actions. We have to try." Michael stared at her, catching the fire in her gaze. She was right. They had no choice. They needed to take this shot, no matter how scary it might be. "Okay, let's make it count." With their plans laid out, they spent the next hours crafting posts, developing graphics, and scheduling meetings with local influencers. It felt exhilarating, like they were building a lifeline towards the kids. By nightfall, the momentum felt palpable. They shared a brief toast with their coffees, a promise to the trio depending on them, even as a sliver of doubt gnawed at Michael. "I hope Castleman is worth all this trouble," he murmured. Before Jess could respond, a woman at a nearby table caught their attention. She had been listening in, eyes wide with interest. "Are you two working to save those kids from eviction?" she asked, her voice full of urgency. She leaned forward, conspiratorial, as if sharing a precious secret. "I know something about Bill Castleman that you might want to hear." Michael felt adrenaline spike through him. He exchanged a glance with Jess. They had drawn in someone who might hold a piece of the puzzle they desperately needed. "What do you know?" he asked, leaning closer, his heart racing. But just as she opened her mouth to speak, the cafe door swung open with a gust of wind. A figure stumbled in, their eyes scanning the room with an intensity that returned all of Michael's doubts in full force. What did this stranger want? And could they trust the words about to leave the woman's lips? The tension in the cafe seemed to thicken like fog wrapping around the room. The new arrival stood at the door, shaking off raindrops from an unexpected storm outside. Their gaze darted to the woman leaning toward Michael and Jess, and for a moment, time froze. The woman's mouth was still moving, but no sound came out. Suddenly, Michael's pulse raced. Was the newcomer here to disrupt them? He leaned in even closer, desperate to catch whatever intelligence this stranger held. Wait, he insisted, urgency flaring in his voice. What do you know about Bill Castleman? The woman hesitated, her eyes flicking nervously to the intruder now strolling confidently toward them. It was a tall, imposing figure dressed in a dark coat, exuding an air of authority and general discomfort. There was something about that presence that felt both familiar and threatening. You two need to be careful. Bill Castleman is not who you think he is, the woman finally spoke, her voice low and strained, barely above a whisper. What do you mean? Jess asked, her face etched with determination, but also a hint of confusion. The newcomer interrupted, taking a spot at their table, leaning against it with an unsettling grin. You're digging into him, huh? You better watch your backs. There was an arrogance in the stranger's tone, making Michael's gut twist uneasily. Excuse me, but who are you? Michael asked, unable to hide the defensive edge in his voice. Just someone who knows the truth. I work in the same circles. Castleman may seem generous, but trust me, there's darkness there, the stranger replied with an unsettling calm. If you're after the triplets, you don't want to get caught in his crossfire. Michael felt Jess's hand squeeze his, they were both teetering on the edge of some murky knowledge. What kind of darkness? Jess pressed, her determination shining through the confusion. The woman at the table suddenly spoke up again, her voice steadier now. You won't just uncover philanthropy. There are deals and secrets that could hurt people. My own sister worked for him, and well, she's not the same anymore. Michael's instinct was to push back against the fear rising in his throat. Every instinct within told him to tread carefully, yet a small flame of curiosity and courage flickered inside him. Look, we have to find out the truth for those kids, he declared. We can't let anyone intimidate us. Yeah, well, good luck with that, the newcomer scoffed, folding his arms. But you need to either drop this whole thing or be prepared for what comes next. It won't be pretty. Castleman doesn't take kindly to threats. The weight of those words hung heavy. Michael glanced at Jess, who was now staring at the newcomers, a storm of emotions in her eyes. He didn't want to back down, their mission was too important. But now trepidation danced between them. What would they have to face? I'll take my chances, he finally said, a shaky bravado thrusting through his veins. Jess nodded, her fire igniting once more, but before they could act on their resolve, the stranger spoke again, lowering their voice for dramatic effect. There's something you need to see, something that could change everything you think you know about Bill Castleman. Michael leaned in further, his heart pounding with an intoxicating mix of hope and dread. What is it? He breathed, feeling the entire cafe fall silent around them, all attention focused. The stranger bent closer and whispered, "Meet me tomorrow evening at the old water tower. I have documents that will blow the lid off his entire facade." They'd been given a lifeline, but with it came new danger. Michael's heart raced as he processed what might lie ahead. Would it be a chance to help the kids or something that could ruin their entire mission? "We'll be there," Jess declared, the determination simmering in her voice. As the tension slowly diffused but the uncertainty still loomed, Michael felt a chill. Just how deep did the rabbit hole go, and what was waiting at the other end? The storm had only begun to brew. The next morning dawned gray and overcast. Michael awakened, as a stubborn drizzle tapped at the windows. He couldn't shake the looming sense of dread hanging in the air, like an unwelcome guest that refused to leave. He rolled over, feeling the weight of the previous night pressing down on his chest. He knew today was important, and the meeting with the mysterious stranger at the old water tower was heavy on his mind. After a quick shower, he dressed in jeans and a hoodie, feeling the chill seep into his bones. As he prepared for the day, he allowed himself a moment to think about the triplets. Their innocent faces haunted him, their laughter now a distant memory, overshadowed by the harsh reality of their eviction. It fueled his determination. Michael also considered Jess, who was probably still wrestling with her own fears and hopes. When he finally arrived at the cafe, he found Jess already at their usual corner table, her brow furrowed in concentration over a steaming cup of coffee. He slid into the seat across from her, and instantly, she looked up. Her eyes were bright, yet they carried a storm of thoughts. "Hey, you ready for this?" she asked, her voice steady yet laced with uncertainty. "As ready as I'll ever be," Michael replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The urgency they felt the night before still crackled in the air between them. "So, any thoughts on what he'll show us?" Jess's fingers tapped rhythmically against the table, mirroring her anxious energy. "Maybe something incriminating," Michael mused, "but we have to be careful. Whatever this is, it could put us in riskier territory." The anticipation twisted like a knot in Michael's stomach as they finished their coffees and made their way to the old water tower, the drizzle now turning into a steady rain. As they approached the decrepit structure, it loomed over them, its shadow a stark reminder of the secrets it guarded. The space around it felt oddly quiet. No birds sang, nature seemed to hold its breath. Michael and Jess exchanged a glance, their unspoken apprehensions hanging heavy in the air. "Do you really think this stranger can help us?" Jess asked, her gaze traced along the rusted metal of the tower. "I don't know," Michael admitted. "But we have to find out. We owe it to those kids." They reached the base of the tower, and just as the rain began to pour more heavily, the stranger emerged from the shadow, their face obscured by a hood. He stepped forward, revealing himself. The stranger's eyes gleamed with a mix of confidence and nervousness, and for a moment, Michael couldn't tell if the figure was friend or foe. "Glad you came," the stranger said, their tone less cocky than it had been the night before. "We don't have much time." Michael's heart raced as the stranger pulled out a weathered briefcase. "Inside here are documents that detail everything." What he revealed could change the direction of their lives, but as the stranger opened the briefcase, a chill gripped Michael. Would the truth empower them or put them in further danger? Before he could ask, a loud crash reverberated through the air, and Michael's heart sank as he turned. A black SUV rounded the corner, tires screeching against the wet pavement. A familiar logo shone across the side, a logo he had seen far too often in connection with Bill Castleman. "Time's up," the stranger hissed, shoving the briefcase into Michael's hands. "Run!" Jess shouted, grabbing Michael's arm, and together they fled into the rain-soaked streets, their breath hitching with panic. The stakes were higher now than ever. What would they uncover about Castleman? And would the evidence in that briefcase expose the truth or seal their fate? As they sprinted away, their hearts pounding in synchronicity, the rain continued to pour, washing away the last remnants of their safety. The rain pounded down, soaking Michael and Jess as they dashed through the streets of Maplewood, the sound of the SUV's engine revving close behind them. The panic fueled them, blending fear with determination. Michael clutched the briefcase tightly, knowing it held secrets that could mean everything for Emma, Ethan, and Ella. "Over here!" Jess shouted, darting into an alley. They ducked behind a dumpster, the rain shield muffling their frantic breaths. The adrenaline coursing through Michael's veins sharpened his focus. He had to get the documents to safety, not just for them but for the triplets who deserved a fighting chance. "I can't believe this is happening," Jess whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What's in that briefcase?" "I don't know, but it could expose what Castleman is hiding." "Whatever it is, it can help us save the kids," Michael replied, glancing nervously toward the alley's exit, ensuring the threat had passed. The sense of urgency was electrifying, it pushed him to act. After catching their breath, they slipped out into the rain once more, moving quickly but cautiously. Out of the corner of his eye, Michael spotted the school, a beacon of hope freshly painted in bright colors, where the triplets spent their days. Before heading there, they needed to determine their next steps. Once a safe distance away, they ducked into a small cafe that clung to the corner of Maplewood South Main Street. The warmth greeted them like a long-lost friend. They chose a quiet corner to collect themselves, water dripping from their clothes, eyes scanning the room for potential threats. "What do we do now?" Jess asked, a mix of anxiety and resolve in her voice. "We look at what's inside this briefcase," he replied, setting it down on the table. Jess leaned in, her expression fierce and determined. "Michael, if this is as big as you think, we need to be careful." He nodded, but could feel the weight of responsibility mounting. This was not just about them anymore. They cautiously unlatched the briefcase, the soft click echoing like a crucial heartbeat. Inside, papers were stacked neatly, crumpled photographs, and a flash drive hidden beneath a folder marked Castleman Enterprises. "What are we dealing with?" Jess whispered, leaning closer as Michael began unfolding the documents. His heart sank as he skimmed the pages, the truth blurred together in dark ink. They outlined real estate deals intended to displace vulnerable families, including the triplets. The darker secrets, discussions about profit margins overshadowing human dignity, formed a damning narrative. Jaw clenched, he realized Castleman's philanthropy came stained in the cost of despair for families like Emma, Ethan, and Ella's. "This is it," Michael breathed, forcing the weight of it all to settle in his chest. "We can use this to bring attention to what he's doing. We can rally the community against him." Determination surged through Jess, igniting a spark. "We need to get this information to the town meeting. If we can hold Castleman accountable, we can protect those kids." With every ounce of resolve they had left, they plotted their next moves. They would organize the townspeople, present the evidence they had just uncovered, and set forth a demand for justice that could no longer stay silent. Michael felt hope rise stronger than ever. But lurking in the back of his mind was that sense of foreboding. This battle for the children's future was going to be hard won. As they stepped back into the rain, side by side, they understood that the coming days would be filled with uncertainty and danger. They hoped to use this just-discovered truth to unite not only for Emma, Ethan, and Ella but for everyone facing displacement and hardship in Maplewood. The future might still be uncharted and fraught with challenges, but somehow in that tangled precipitation, their mission became crystal clear. They would fight for their community, for the triplets, and for the homes they knew were still worth protecting. Together, with hearts ablaze, Michael and Jess walked back out into the storm, fueled by a determination that could spark a wildfire of change. The fight had just begun. This is your moment, too. If you feel the call to stand with us in these stories, you need to subscribe now. Hit that bell and don't miss the next exclusive tales of heroism. Leave a like now, it fuels our journey by feeding the algorithm that connects us to many more people who need to hear this. Comment below how this story inspires you. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to be part of this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Only true fans understand that their support supports the heart of this channel. Let us make our voices heard together.